I have been where you are. I have been in a place where I have really disliked my body, really felt insecure, really felt an insane amount of body shame. And I've also come out on the other end. So I know and I'm 100% certain that it is possible for you too. Hello, my beautiful friend, and welcome back to the Self-Love Garden. My name is Ana Marquez, and I am here to help you fall madly in love with yourself and your body. Today, I am going to be sharing about my personal journey of how I learned to love my body and what a journey it has been. I'm going to share with you why I hated my body in the first place and my experience with disordered eating and body dysmorphia. And then I'm also going to share with you what catalyzed me to start loving my body and what actions I took that actually helped me to experience body love and body acceptance. I think that it's important to first acknowledge that none of us are born hating our bodies. I was not brought into this world with body dysmorphia and insecurity and body shame. In fact, when I was a child, and I'm very fortunate because I know that this isn't the case for everyone, but when I was a child, I loved my body. I didn't really even think about what it looked like because I was just having so much fun playing tag and dancing flamenco and going on the monkey bars and arm wrestling all the boys and winning. I was an arm wrestling champ that I really didn't ever stop to think about what could possibly be wrong with my body. It never even crossed my mind. My relationship with my body really shifted when I became a teenager and went through adolescence. I think this is a really common experience for everyone. I think especially for women, this is when our relationship with our bodies can really change. And I'll share a little bit about how it manifested for me. One, I think that during this time, my body changed so rapidly that I feel like I became a stranger to my body. Growing up, I loved playing, and like I said, I never really gave how my body looked a second thought. But when I became a teenager, it felt like all of a sudden I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know how to move my body. Activities that once felt so natural and exciting and I felt so confident, all of a sudden I felt so awkward and weird. And I specifically remember this one day in flamenco. I used to dance flamenco for many years. I was about 14 or 15 and I was in the class, and footwork and arms and different moves that I knew in my blood how to do, it was like I couldn't do it. I remember feeling like I did not know my body anymore. And I think this is what started to create a dissociation. And then I think the second piece is that it was during this time where I felt like I lost ownership of my body. It was at this time when my body, after developing curves, especially, where I started to get a lot of unwanted attention from men, catcalling me, harassing me, literally chasing me down the street and blocking my pathway, where I learned that it did not feel safe to be in my body. And I learned that me experiencing my body through play and playing tag with the boys and playing with people no matter the gender, that was no longer the MO. I could no longer really do that because it became crystal clear what side I was on. And unfortunately, I was on the side of being prey. And this created a really big sense of not feeling really safe in the world, and I think further dissociated me from my body and really made me feel like my body no longer belonged to me. It made me feel like my body belonged to other people for their pleasure and what they thought of my body held more weight, or started to hold more weight than what I thought about my body. And the sad thing is this wasn't just with men, this was with everybody. And I grew up during the 90s and 2000s, and during this time in the 2000s especially, the ideal beauty standard was super, super stick thin, no curves models, actresses, and singers. And there was no diversity in what was being represented. We did not see different women of different colors and different shapes and different sizes and different heights. That was totally not the reality. And if you were not a super, super stick thin woman, then you were considered unattractive. And I started to receive comments on my body that told me so. I had friends that would tell me that I had thunder thighs, or that I should start exercising, or that I should lose weight. And this really made me internalize this belief that I really was not beautiful, that my body was not beautiful. And I have natural curves. And again, during that time, I grew really rapidly and I didn't know how to handle that. And so all of these things happening at once, this feeling of being a stranger to my body, this feeling of not being safe in my body, and this feeling that I also at the same time was unworthy of being beautiful and that I wasn't beautiful just the way I was, really distorted my perception of my body. I didn't have the ability any longer, the way I did when I was a kid, to see my body through clear, loving eyes. I saw my body as the problem. I saw my body as being unworthy and as being unattractive and ugly. And looking back, this just breaks my heart so much, because it caused me so much turmoil and pain. But that was what my experience was. And it was really, really hard. And the truth is I don't have a much different body than I did back then. But the biggest difference is how I experience and perceive my body. I would say that I now perceive my body through clear, loving eyes, because I've worked so hard to overcome that body dysmorphia. But during then, it didn't matter what anybody told me. I truly believed that my body was horrible. And so what happened is, by the time that I made it to college, I made it a point to change my body. I made it a point to lose weight, because I truly believed that if I could change my body and that if I could lose weight, that I would finally feel accepted, that I would finally feel beautiful, that I would finally have a place in the world and have a sense of belonging. And so during my freshman year, I started working out and I started to eat what in my mind at the time was considered healthier. And this did start out in a relatively healthy way. You know, I started going to the gym a couple times a week with my friends, so it was very social. I started to eat more vegetables. It was the first time I had access to both, working out regularly and also choosing my own meals. So I felt really empowered in the beginning. It started out healthy and natural at first, but it quickly devolved, and I'll tell you what the shift was. The shift was when my body did start to change. And when my body started to change and I started to lose weight, I received an insane amount of positive reinforcement. I had so many people come up to me and tell me how amazing I looked. They'd say, "Anna, wow, you look so incredible. You lost so much weight. You're so skinny. You're amazing. What's your secret? I'm so jealous of you." And this is what fueled the fire. I remember taking all these comments in, and it just motivated me even more. And this is what really tipped the scale the other way, from healthy territory into unhealthy territory. And this is when I started working out 1 to 2 hours a day. And this is also when I started to really change a lot of my eating habits. So for me, eating was no longer just adding vegetables, it was restricting food intake. It was waiting hours and hours and hours before having a meal again. I now know that I developed what is called disordered eating, which at the time I didn't have a word for it. It was just dieting. And I think this is a really important note to make because disordered eating is extremely normalized in our society. You'll notice that when I say things like taking long hours to wait to eat or restricting my intake, these are really common diet practices. Think of like intermittent fasting or really any diet basically. So I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor, but really use your discernment when you're learning about different ways of eating because a lot of diets are just fancier ways of convincing people to develop disordered eating. So I said what I said, and I speak about this from experience. As I started to lose weight, as I started to shift my body, I did receive that positive reinforcement. And I think the saddest part about this is that I never received that level of positive reinforcement and encouragement ever prior to losing that weight and being skinny. And what this did to my mental state is it reinforced the belief that I was not worthy before, that I was not beautiful before. And it reinforced that I was more accepted in society when I was skinnier and when my body looked closer to the ideal beauty standard. I would say the catalyst for me in learning to love my body and having the desire to learn how to love my body came in stages. So the first stage happened when I experienced a really bad injury that actually caused me to not be able to walk for like 10 weeks, and it really forced me to reevaluate how I was working out and how I was treating my body, because I think that injury happened in large part because I was just wearing my body down. So it really forced me to think about, okay, am I doing too much? I think the second stage happened one summer when I went home, and I'm from New Mexico, and I used to work in this consignment store that I loved, and I had worked there all through high school and when I'd go back during breaks in college. And I remember I went home and I remember receiving 2 comments from the women that I worked with, and one of them said, "Oh my God, you're shrinking. Where did you go?" Because I had lost so much weight. And the other woman said, "I liked you better before." These comments really had a big impact on me because I had been so used to receiving positive reinforcement that these were the first negative comments I got. So on one hand, it really made me acknowledge the fact that the culture that I come from, which is a Hispanic culture, really often does embrace curves and eating and connecting through food and things like that. So it really made me acknowledge that was where I came from, and that was different from what I had been seeing and experienced in like the mainstream culture. And then the other piece of this that was so profound in those comments is that it made me realize, like, wow, I can't make anybody happy. I can be curvy and be told that I am ugly and unworthy, and I can be really stick thin and skinny, and people will also not be happy with how I look and comment on how I look in a negative way. And this was a really important experience for me because it was one of the first times where I realized, like, there's no way that I can please everybody through making my body perfect. So why am I caring so much about this and caring what other people think instead of focusing on making myself happy and finding acceptance for myself? That was the second stage. The third stage, which was the straw that broke the camel's back, happened on my 21st birthday, and I basically had a really bad mental breakdown where I lashed out at my boyfriend, now my husband, and it really woke me up to realizing that I was projecting a lot of my self-hate onto the people I loved, and that if I continued down that path, I was really going to hurt my most important relationships and really suffer, really hurt myself as well. And so I realized then that I really needed to learn how to love myself. Otherwise, I didn't want to know what could happen, to be honest. I didn't want to find out. And for me, that was the biggest catalyst for my self-love journey and consequently my body love journey, because for me, those things are inextricably linked. I had spent so many years hating my body and beating it down and neglecting it and trying to contort it to appease some crazy ideal beauty standard that I had abandoned my internal self. I had abandoned my values. I had abandoned who I am at my core, and I needed to reclaim that back. And for me, that journey started with learning how to love my body. There are a lot of things that I have done to learn my body, and quite honestly, more than I can really fit into this video. So I'm going to just share a few with you that I think had the biggest impact in my first few years of my self-love journey. One of the top ones for me was learning how to move for joy rather than exercise for weight loss. And this definitely did take time, but was really important for me because I did have a history of over-exercising. So I really had to change my mindset about what it meant to move my body. And that's actually a key vocabulary change that I intentionally made, is that I no longer called it exercise. I instead decided to broaden the term and call it movement. And I gave myself permission to move in ways that really brought me joy and that felt good for my body, rather than trying to exercise in order to attain a certain goal. And this is something that really helped me just find joy in the pleasures of my body. In the beginning of this video, I talked about how much I loved to play as a kid and run around and play tag. And I think one of the biggest joys from that is that I just moved my body because it's what my body wanted to do, not because I wanted it to look a certain way. So this was a really important step for me in reclaiming my body for myself, rather than continuing the path I was on of my body being for other people's pleasure. This is really what allowed me to take ownership of my body again. The second thing I did is that I took time to learn how to eat intuitively. This was really, really hard for me and took a lot of time to do. And now I think there are actually certified nutritionists who can help guide you through this process, who are really big on intuitive eating. I honestly did this on my own, which looking back, I sometimes wish I did have more support, but I didn't know that it existed. And quite honestly, I didn't really have those resources. But learning how to eat intuitively for me was really about giving up on all dieting and just eating what my body wanted to eat. Now, if you're somebody who has experienced body dysmorphia or disordered eating, this can feel really, really scary at first, and it takes time to really build trust with yourself about this and how to do this. It certainly did for me. It did not happen overnight, but I learned how to just follow what my body wanted to eat. And sometimes that was a lot of ice cream. Sometimes that was my childhood favorite meal of like a Frito pie. And then sometimes it was a salad. And so this certainly did, all of these things did cause my weight to fluctuate. But what really helped me kind of move through the uncomfortable feelings that would come up around my body sort of shifting as I learned to move for joy and learned how to eat intuitively is the third step that I did, which really, really helped me, which was focusing on how my body felt rather than how my body looked. And this is what really helped anchor me in a place of body love and really taking ownership over my body and reclaiming my body for myself, because it allowed me to take my power back so that I wasn't focused any longer on looking beautiful for other people's pleasure, but rather feeling good inside myself, because this is the only body that I have and I deserve to feel good. So how I practiced this and learned to practice this was really through body scan meditations, which is a meditation that just takes you through going through your body, tuning into the different sensations in your body, and asking your body, what is this telling me? What does this mean? And what action can I take? What loving action can I take from these sensations to show my body love? So sometimes that would be like, wow, I'm really tired. I really need to rest. Or, wow, I'm feeling some anxious energy. Maybe I need to go on a walk and move for joy. So again, this didn't happen overnight. This definitely was a practice that took time. I'm also going to be putting up some more meditations, and I'll definitely be sure to include a body scan meditation. So if that interests you, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss that when it comes out. But definitely learning how to listen to my body and focus on how my body felt rather than how it looked was really, really important. The fourth thing I did, which I think is probably the most important, not that there's really a ranking, but I would say that was really important and isn't talked about enough, is I really worked on my mental health. And this deserves a whole other video because my mental health journey is a whole other thing. I mean, they're all linked together, but it deserves its own time. I really worked on my mental health. I struggled with anxiety since I was 9 years old. And I also really struggled with depression for many years. Through self-reflection and through my own experience, what I discovered is that a lot of the reason why I also kind of clung to exercising and changing my body is because it was a way for me to feel like I had control in my life and control in my life experience. And I had experienced a lot of trauma growing up and through my teenage years and even through college that I really didn't know how to deal with. I had absolutely no idea, but I was really suffering inside. And so I channeled a lot of that anxiety into working out and trying to control my body. So focusing on my mental health and developing tools to support my well-being in that area was extremely, extremely important for me and for my well-being overall. I think addressing those things also really helped me to see myself more through clear, loving eyes, because it was these practices like going to therapy, journaling, meditating, these things that I did for my mental health that really allowed me to practice self-compassion and to care for myself like I would a dear friend or like a child that I really loved. And that was really, really important because I was able to develop compassion for what I went through and for my body, and I no longer took out that self-hatred onto my body and found other ways to channel my mental suffering. I can happily say that I do love and accept my body just the way it is, and I practice loving my body every single day, and you can too. I know firsthand that the journey is not easy. There's a lot of things that can work against you because, let's face it, unfortunately, we do live in a society that normalizes body hate and insecurity and body shame. And there's so many messages out there, especially to young women, that reinforce the idea that your body is not good enough. Learning how to love your body can often feel like you are swimming upstream, and it's like a crazy river that you're swimming upstream against, right? It's not even like a little mellow thing, right? You're like really going against some tides. I know that it's really, really tough, but I promise you it is worth the journey because your body is the only body that you have. Your body is your vessel to experience life, and your body is longing for you to love it back, because there are so many fun adventures for you to go on, so many great experiences for you to have, and there are so many reasons for you to love and appreciate your body just the way it is.